Daisy.
And I'm Terry.
And this is the Monday Mindset Podcast,
where we share things of interest to us and hopefully to you.
So let's get started with episode number 127.
And this week, it's Daisy's turn to share something. Daisy, what do you have for us?
Well, Terry, I am back with another one of my newsletters. And I am back with some people that I shared not very long ago. I don't think it was the last one, but it was the one before. Do you remember the dreaded drama triangle and the, not to be confused with TED Talks, but I always get confused with TED Talks because it's TED in capitals, the empowerment dynamic triangle. She's nodding her head.
I do remember.
She does remember. Well, it was only a couple of weeks ago, so you would not have a very good excuse for forgetting already. Although, as we both know, I'm always reminded when I come to edit. I'm like, oh yeah, I completely forgot I said all that, because as soon as it's done, it's gone from my menopause brain. Okay, so the reason I am back with this is because their newsletter landed in my inbox and it's entitled The Rescuer's Dilemma. If you remember from the episode we recorded, this is one that I think a lot of people fall into, the rescuer role. Certainly both of us do at various times. I'm talking about this episode as if everybody knows what I'm talking about. And of course, they might not have listened however many weeks ago it was. So I will just remind you quickly. This newsletter comes from Donna Zajonc and David Emerald. And they have a website called the empowermentdynamic.com. And they talk about the dreaded drama triangle. Very, very quick recap. The 3 points of the drama triangle, or the dreaded drama triangle, first described by Dr. Stephen Cartman in the late 1960s. But it's basically a dynamic, mostly between the victim, who nobody wants to be, and especially the persecutor, who definitely doesn't want to be a victim, which is one of the reasons why they persecute the victim. But then the third point on that triangle is the rescuer, who comes in to kind of try and mediate between the two. But we have these 3 points, and as we talked about it, it's very sort of past focused, in the present focused, inward focused. You feel very hemmed in by it, and they like to change these roles into the empowerment dynamic, where the victim becomes the creator, the persecutor becomes the challenger, and the rescuer becomes the coach. All very positive, forward thinking, outward focused, much more productive roles that we would like to be in. So that's just a very, very quick recap. But this newsletter came in, The Rescuer's Dilemma. The rescuer role is one of these 3 roles that make up the dreaded drama triangle. And when in the rescuer role, you feel the strong urge to help others so they don't suffer or feel bad. In a nutshell, they say rescuers are helpers. And I've certainly said it many a time that I'm one of those people who likes to fix it. I like to find the answer for people. I like to, try and come up with solutions. I definitely step into this rescuer role often. And as I mentioned in the previous episode when we spoke about, you don't have to just fit one of these roles. You can sort of flit in and out of all 3. But interestingly, of the 3 roles in the dreaded drama triangle, it's the rescuer role that might be the most difficult to transform. And they talk about how there's lots of cultural approval for those who are helpers. Think of people in healthcare profession, firefighters, first responders, and all these kind of people are thought of as helpers, as rescuers. So you can see why that part of the triangle is something that you wouldn't necessarily feel, it's not a role you'd feel bad about necessarily. But the psychological identity of a rescuer caught in this dreaded drama triangle is very different from these roles that are played in society by professionals who really are rescuers. That is their role in what they do. They are talking about a compulsive desire to be helpful and please others, to be the hero and hoping to receive love and approval in return. You might remember from when we spoke about it the first time, there's a need to be seen to be helping. I don't think we always necessarily do this consciously, but that's definitely part of the dynamic that is not very healthy. And they list a few characteristics that describe the rescuer role in the dreaded drama triangle. I'm just going to go with DDT like they do for short because it's too long of a title. So they say, see if you identify with any of these. You tend to take on more work or duties even when others are responsible for them. You attract others who seem incapable or unwilling to help themselves. There's always some crisis needing your help. And I assume they're saying, if you identify with these, this is your perspective. As I'm reading these, I'm thinking, that might not actually be the case, but this is the way you see it. They don't say that, but I get the sense that's what they're saying. You feel as though you have let others down if you were not able to take away their suffering or fix their problems. And the feeling of being indispensable may be intoxicating, while at the same time you feel unimportant or unable to meet your own needs. This is definitely something that I've fallen into. I can remember times, when I've been feeling really down, really low, but yet I felt able to offer somebody else advice in a Facebook group or something and got some kind of something back from being able to offer somebody else the help that for some reason I can't actually offer myself. In short, they say, when in the rescuer role, you focus on everyone else. You see your job as supporting others, so you avoid recognizing or meeting your own needs. That is the dilemma.
It's interesting, though, if you really explore a lot of this, is that, let's say, for example, I'm a really good rescuer, though. That person's always going to come back with another crisis. So I'm always going to have this opportunity to be needed.
Yeah.
To know what my role is and to fix something.
Yeah.
Not me, but out here, fix something. So it can be very attractive to be in that rescuer role.
Definitely. And definitely to get a bit of a reputation for being that kind of person. It gives you that feeling of worth, doesn't it? Because it's very laudable. You're helping other people, putting other people before yourself. You can't acknowledge that you even have needs. If you do, you're not focusing on others and therefore you're failing as a helper. Maybe you say to yourself, if I ask for help, I'm needy and helpless. Therefore, asking means I am unworthy. So I'll find worthiness by helping others. If your focus is on filling others' needs, you will never be enough, avoiding any recognition of what you need or want. What a dilemma, they say. So they go on to say, with this psychological underpinning, combined with society's approval of people who help others. So you can see why you kind of want to be in this rescuer, helper role, because everybody loves those kind of people. So it's no surprise really then that transforming this rescuer role is not particularly easy. If you don't identify with the rescuing role, you may not understand these people. You may not get why this real strong need to please by those who primarily respond to life from this role. It's likely, however, that you have someone in your life that does identify with this role, and compassion and understanding for what they're facing is essential. as is always the case when there are these different roles, it's important to be aware of the role that you predominantly fall into yourself, but of course the role that other people that you care about tend to fall into and how you interact with them. To simply say, just stop it, doesn't work well when entrenched in the rescuer role. They do have some tips that they've learned that begin to interrupt this rescuing cycle. Understand the harmful effects of rescuer behaviour. When you do for others what they can do for themselves, you limit their learning and growth. And we spoke about this. And the real difference with the empowerment dynamic triangle, that's the real difference with a coach. What you're encouraging is not a victim anymore, a creator, is to help them draw out that creativity that's in there within them. It's like your analogy that you spoke about before about the acorn. It's all there inside. But you need to encourage them to find their solutions rather than you trying to fix it for them. Learn to ask for help or support. It might be a task at work or asking a family member to do the dishes. It's especially good to ask for help with the tasks you have declared that only you can do. This is not asking to be rescued, they remind us, but to ask for assistance. Notice if uncomfortable feelings arise as you ask for help. This is good. It means you're confronting the core of your rescuing identity. I know this is definitely something I struggle with, asking for help, even when somebody's offered it already. The last one that they list, create moments of genuine self-care. Because rescuers deny their own needs to help others, true self-care helps heal the rescuer's dilemma. Start with something simple, like more work breaks or taking the 3-day weekend that you had previously denied yourself. It's your intention to genuinely support yourself that is important. And then they finish by saying, knowing your innate worth as a creator and embracing your right to a good life is the first step toward transforming your rescuer's dilemma. So there you go. I've stumbled a little bit through their very brief newsletter and gone off on a few tangents, but I think you can probably tell it's definitely something that I have a dilemma about. It's definitely something that I struggle with. I do like to be that person that comes in, as you very well know. I used to come in and try and fix things, have the answer. But I know it's not particularly healthy because apart from anything else, I do things like, get irritated if people don't want to do what I've suggested they do to fix their situation, or, all sorts of things. So I'm becoming more and more aware of that actually this is a bit of a problematic behavior. It's not as it feels like, as they described, it kind of has this halo attached to it because it's being helpful, but actually it's pretty problematic when you dig into it. Not always. I'm not saying always, because yes, there is that role to play. It is a good thing to want to help people, but you just got to do it in the right way. And more, I guess, the empowerment dynamic triangle that they talk about, it is more of a coach role rather than a rescuer. But anyway, I shall hand over to you because I'm sure you've got all sorts of things to say about this, and I know you're big on self-love and self-healing and all that side of it, and how it's important actually to be doing that if you want to be helping other people.
I also think, and I'm not sure I have a very sophisticated way to explain this way that I see this, is some of what you would do in the two roles may have the same intent. It may have the same outcome. But doing it differently really changes what it does for you as the person in that role and what it allows space for the other people in the dynamic. Because if you think about it, if I have to be the rescuer, that does mean someone else is helpless, needs to be rescued, so not empowered. And in the original dreaded dynamic, it means someone is a perpetrator. And so everyone's in a uncomfortable space in certain ways. They're the villain, they're the victim, they're the, hero, versus I can do very similar things, just coming from a different angle. I can join that person and help them find their solution rather than give them the solution. It reminds me a little bit of this quote that I saw yesterday when I opened up my Insight Timer app. It said, "Tell me and I forget, teach me and I may remember, involve me and I learn." So a coach really is offering someone the path, the strategies to resolve something, but involving them in it so that they learn to do it rather than, here, let me just tell you what to do. And I think that's such an important shift. You still get to be helpful. You still get to feel good. But how you do it is healthier for you and is healthier for the person receiving it.
Absolutely. And if you think about it, if you think about a good coach, that is what they're doing. I mean, I think the easiest kind of coach to think about often is a sort of a sports coach, isn't it? But it's the person they're training is the one that has, well, not the one that has the talent, that's unfair to say, but you know what I mean. It's the person they're training is the person who has the great sports talent, who's going to be out on the field displaying that talent. It's not to say that the coach doesn't have a talent. You know what I'm saying. But they're trying to draw that out. They're trying to help that person make the most out of the talent that they have through all the various ways, the tips and the tricks and the strategy that the coach knows are going to be helpful, but it's still applying it to that individual, because the coach can't do it for them. All they can do is help draw it out, and they play a very important role, but it's the person with that talent that needs nurturing, that is the one who has it, that you're trying to draw out.
That's right. So in that way, it's a win-win.
Yeah.
They get drawn out, their talents and abilities get drawn out, and they learn and, can replicate this in future examples. And the coach benefits because they are heard and they help and, they have purpose. And that's important to all of us, a primary motivator.
And I know you've spoken about in videos that I've edited before, there's, there are coaches and there are coaches. And there's a big difference between that sort of that bullying type coach, the boot camp type coach, and the one who tries to draw it out and the one who encourages it to come from you and encourages self-care.
I'm also thinking of another analogy that probably neither you nor I can directly relate to, because I think people who can see this the most are parents of a young child, maybe who has a project due for school and they're struggling and they're maybe, giving up and crying or something. And, the stereotype is the parent who's very gung-ho about this and jumps in there and does the science project, and it's amazing for this first grader or whatever. That's not helping them. That's not, that rescuing doesn't actually save them from anything. It actually creates a different dynamic that becomes problematic versus, okay, I can sit here with you. What resources do we want? Do we need some more paper? How are you going to do that part? Oh, wow. And walk through it with them. That's that coach kind of method versus, all right, watch out, Johnny. I'll do this. Watch mommy. And you get excited about it, but you take over and you kind of teach them that they can't do it. They need you to do it.
And actually, yeah, I can envisage myself in that position and just being like itching to just want to, well, I'll just do it myself then. I had a very, very short stint as a boss of a few other people when I had a landscaping business. It didn't last for long, and I was a hopeless manager of other people, because I'm very much, I do not have the patience. I really struggle with it. It's just like, I'll do it myself then. So it takes a lot to be a good coach. It takes patience. It takes sitting on your hands and biting your tongue and sitting with somebody through their mistakes, sitting with somebody through the time it takes to figure the problem out for themselves. Yes, you're helping maybe steer them and all the rest of it, but you're not stepping in and giving them the answers. You're not stepping in and doing it for them. And it can be frustrating. It's a difficult thing to have that patience to nurture somebody. So you can see why it can be uncomfortable for some people.
Yeah, it feels more exciting to just do it or just give them the answer.
Yeah. Yeah, just do what I do and it'll be fine.
Or do what I would do in my head if I were you in the situation. That's always so much easier to do when we're imagining we're the one in the situation. And maybe that's even why sometimes some of us like to be the rescuer. As you mentioned, if I struggle in taking some of these actions myself, but I can tell you how to do it, I feel really good about my abilities. I'm not having to actually enact the behavior, though.
So if somebody is listening to this thinking, oh yes, that sounds quite a lot like me. I mean, we've offered some tips from the newsletter of ways that you might step in to sort of stop that cycle. But have you got any other words of wisdom that you can just have that little voice inside saying, oh, hold on a minute, before you say such and such or do such and such, what could we do instead?
I might encourage people to use some form of an analogy. Maybe that's because analogies really help me, but if I'm picturing this person's in the driver's seat of the car and I'm sitting in the seat next to them, and let's say they're lost or they don't know how to get out of the situation we're in. Do I reach over and grab the steering wheel? Do I yell at them step by step what to do? Or do I look at the map here because I'm not driving, and say, oh, well, it looks like if you do this, there's an option there. And I let them start to do the steps. If you can picture some way of assisting someone and having that important role of assisting them getting out of the situation or fixing the situation, rather than you jumping over and grabbing the steering wheel while they're trying to drive. How can I be in this passenger seat in a helpful, supportive role? How can I help be the navigator for the driver versus take over their driving for them?
Yes, because I think ultimately one of the reasons they're trying to get us to think about this, it's not only the impact you're having on other people, but the impact you're having on yourself by doing that. It's not fulfilling if you're maintaining this role as a rescuer. You're holding somebody in that victim role, and that's not rewarding for you. It plays negatively back on you as well. So it's as important for you to get yourself out of this role as it is for other people. So I'm sure at some point we'll be back to the dreaded drama triangle. It is something that I'm reminded of often. But I couldn't resist coming back to it today because, yes, it is something that I've identified as one of my issues.
I think it's a great one to be working on because sometimes we identify things that we could work on because they're really clearly not working for us. And this is one where you could be misled to think this does work. I feel good when I'm in this role, and other people benefit from me being in this role. And by not taking a deeper look at it, you might miss that it's actually holding both of you back.
Definitely.
So now you and I will catch each other when we start to slide into this rescuing role. Get back in the passenger seat.
Yeah. Stop being a backseat driver.
That's right. And I think even as friends, you and I sometimes fall into this. When you're in a dark spot with something, I want to fix it for you. I want to quickly tell you, oh, just do this. And you, of course, are tempted because you don't like to see me struggle with something. But recognizing, how can I join her in this? How can I work with her side by side in helping her to get to her solution?
Yes, that's a good image, actually. It's thinking back to Brene Brown, isn't it? Of the whole walking alongside, not getting into somebody's shoes, but just walking alongside and letting them tell their own story.
And not walking in front of, not walking behind.
Yeah, not walking along in front of, dragging them along.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, all sorts of people talk about this in different ways. It's good to have a reminder because, as you said, the more often than not, the intent there is good. There's good intention, but we know that doesn't always work out as well as we intend. Anyway, until next week, I hope you have a very wonderful week.
You too, Daisy. Take good care, everybody.